Ready for a trip? But not one of those package tours with boring guides. Today, we're getting into the time machine and landing in the most dangerous bedroom in history. Forget everything you think you know. Forget the Hollywood movies with violet-eyed actresses draped in silk, sighing in the arms of legionaries. That's the kids' version, the pasteurized history they sold us so we could sleep soundly. The truth is much rawer, more intelligent, and let's be honest, much more savage. The story we're going to unearth today is about a woman who understood something fundamental about power. That it isn't just won with armies and gold, but also in bed. A woman who turned her body into a battlefield and her sexuality into a weapon of mass destruction. This is the story of Cleopatra. Not the queen, not the lover, but the geopolitical strategist who used sex with the precision of a surgeon and the coldness of an assassin to bring the greatest empire the world had ever known to its knees. So dim the lights, close that TikTok tab you have open, and get comfortable. Because we are about to reveal how the most powerful vagina in antiquity almost changed the destiny of Western civilization forever. Before we dive into the Nile, if you like this kind of uncensored history, hit that like button so the algorithm knows that we like the unvarnished truth here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? Hiding at the office? To understand Cleopatra, we first have to throw out 3 giant lies they've told us. Bombshell number 1. Cleopatra was an incomparable beauty. False. Completely false. This is Hollywood's biggest lie. The coins from her era, which are the most faithful portraits we have, show her with a prominent nose, a sharp chin, and rather severe features. Roman historians, her worst enemies, who never missed an opportunity to destroy her, rarely mention her physical beauty. You know what they do mention? Her voice. They said it was like a musical instrument, capable of modulating to seduce, to command, to inspire. They mention her charisma, an energy that filled the room and made all eyes focus on her. And above all, they mention her mind. Plutarch, a guy who wasn't exactly her fan, wrote that her allure was not in her appearance but in her conversation. Think about it. In a world dominated by brute force, her most lethal weapon was her wit. She was the personification of what we would today call sapiosexual. Her power of seduction didn't come from a perfect face. It came from a brain that worked at a different speed, from a confidence that disarmed generals and consuls alike. She would look at you, and you didn't see a pretty face. You saw a mind that had already calculated 10 ways to destroy you, and 20 ways to make you the most powerful man in the world. And she let you choose. That, my friends, is sexier than any Hollywood face. Bombshell number 2. Cleopatra was Egyptian. Error. Not even close. Cleopatra was about as Egyptian as a hamburger. She belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a line of Macedonian Greek rulers, direct descendants of Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's trusted generals. Her family had ruled Egypt for almost 300 years, but they remained culturally Greek. They spoke Greek, worshipped Greek gods, and generally considered themselves superior to the native Egyptians they governed. But here is Cleopatra's stroke of genius. After 3 centuries of her family ruling Egypt without bothering to learn the local language, do you know who was the first and only one in her dynasty to learn Egyptian? Exactly. She didn't do it for the love of the language. She did it because she was a brilliant politician. She understood that to rule a people, to earn their loyalty, you have to speak their language, understand their culture, respect their gods. While her ancestors locked themselves in their Greek bubble, Cleopatra immersed herself in Egyptian culture. She presented herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. She participated in their religious festivals. She was a master of political marketing, And she didn't stop there. She spoke at least 9 languages, including Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic, and the languages of the neighboring tribes. She was literally a walking Google Translate in an age when most kings could barely read in their own language. Bombshell number 3. She was an insatiable nymphomaniac. This is the most sexist and enduring slander of all, created by the Roman propaganda machine to discredit her. The image they've sold us is of a woman who jumped from bed to bed, using her body to satisfy an endless appetite. The reality is much more strategic and, frankly, more terrifying for her enemies. In her entire life, Cleopatra had only 2 documented romantic relationships. 2. With Julius Caesar and with Mark Antony. Only 2. Yes, but what a 2. They were the 2 most powerful men of their generation, the 2 generals who controlled the destiny of the known world. Each of those relationships was not a whim. It was a global-level chess move. It wasn't lust. It was geopolitics. It wasn't promiscuity. It was a high-risk survival strategy. She didn't sleep with men. She allied with empires. Her bedroom wasn't a place of pleasure. It was her boardroom, her command center, the place where the future of nations was decided. And to understand why those 2 relationships changed the world, you have to understand what Egypt was at that time. Forget the sand dunes and camel caravans. Cleopatra's Egypt was the economic superpower of the Mediterranean. It was the Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and Federal Reserve of its time, all in one. Alexandria, its capital, was not a dusty town. It was the largest, richest, and most cosmopolitan city in the world. A vibrant metropolis where all the trade routes between Europe, Asia, and Africa intersected. Silk from China, spices from India, gold from Nubia, everything passed through its ports. And most importantly, Egypt was the breadbasket of Rome. It produced 1/3 of all the wheat that fed the Roman giant. Think about it. Without Egyptian wheat, the legions didn't march, and the people of Rome starved. Cleopatra wasn't just rich. She had Rome by the stomach. She had the world's largest economic lever. But her real secret weapon wasn't gold or grain. It was knowledge. Alexandria housed the most legendary library in history, a center of learning that contained the sum of all human knowledge. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy. It was the brain of the ancient world. And Cleopatra wasn't just the queen of the country that housed it. She had been educated there. She was a scholar, a scientist, a philosopher. This was not a queen who sat around embroidering. This was a woman who could calculate the trajectory of a catapult projectile in the morning, debate the works of Aristotle in the afternoon, and at night, design a naval strategy that would make the most experienced admirals sweat. That was the board she played on, and her pieces were the most powerful men in the world. Her first big move, Julius Caesar. When Caesar arrives in Alexandria in 48 BC, Cleopatra is in exile, betrayed by her own brother, Ptolemy XIII. She is alone, without an army, and without power. Anyone else would have begged, would have surrendered. What does Cleopatra do? She does something so audacious, so theatrical, it seems straight out of a movie. She has herself rolled up in a carpet and gets a faithful servant to smuggle her past enemy lines and deliver her directly to Caesar's private chambers. Imagine the scene. Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, the man who just won a brutal civil war, is in his room, and suddenly a carpet is unrolled at his feet, and from it emerges a 22-year-old woman who speaks to him in perfect Latin, not as a defeated queen, but as an equal. It wasn't an act of submission. It was a declaration of intent. She was telling him, "I am so intelligent and cunning that I can get to you without your enemies or mine even noticing." Now, let's talk business. Caesar, a man who considered himself the most brilliant in Rome, was utterly fascinated, not just by her audacity, but by her mind. He found in her someone who could keep up with him, who understood politics, strategy, power. They had a son, Caesarion, and for a moment, Cleopatra's dream of an alliance between Egypt and Rome, an alliance of equals, seemed possible. But then Caesar is assassinated, the chessboard is reset, and Cleopatra has to make her next move. Enter Mark Antony, a completely different man from Caesar. Caesar was a cold, calculating intellectual. Antony was a passionate warrior, a man of excess who loved spectacle and grandeur. Does Cleopatra use the same carpet strategy? Of course not. She adapts her game. When Mark Antony summons her to Tarsus, she doesn't go as a vassal. She orchestrates the most spectacular entrance the world had ever seen. She arrives on a barge with purple sails, silver oars, and a hull covered in gold. She herself is dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, reclining under a golden canopy, while boys dressed as cupids fan her and the air fills with the perfume of incense. It wasn't just an entrance. It was a psychological operation. She was saying to Antony, "You may be the greatest general in Rome, but I am a goddess. You are in my league, not me in yours." Mark Antony, the man who loved theater, fell completely. He canceled his own banquets just to dine on her ship. He was completely mesmerized, not just by the woman, but by the vision she represented, a world of wealth, culture, and power that surpassed anything Rome could offer. Together they began to build that dream. In an event known as the Donations of Alexandria, they sat on golden thrones and distributed kingdoms to their children like candy. They named their twins Alexander Helios, sun, and Cleopatra Selene, moon. It was a bold declaration. Their children would rule the world from sunrise to sunset, uniting East and West. It was an alternative empire, with Alexandria as its cultural and intellectual center. It was the antithesis of the militaristic, expansionist Rome. It was a vision that could have changed history. But in Rome, a cold, ambitious young man named Octavian saw this not as a dream, but as a treason. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, used the Donations of Alexandria as the perfect excuse. He launched a brutal propaganda campaign against Cleopatra. He called her the whore of the East, the witch who had bewitched the noble Mark Antony with her potions and her body. He turned a civil war for Roman power into a patriotic war against a foreign threat. And this is where tragedy strikes. The decisive battle took place at sea, at Actium. It was one of the largest naval battles in history. But in the midst of the chaos, something went terribly wrong. A signal was misinterpreted. Cleopatra, commanding the rear guard, believed the order for retreat had been given and moved away from the combat to protect the royal treasury, which was crucial to continuing the war. Mark Antony, seeing her leave, made the fatal mistake of his life. Instead of continuing to fight, he abandoned his men and followed his lover. For his soldiers, it was the ultimate humiliation. Their legendary general, fleeing a battle for a woman. Morale plummeted. The fleet disintegrated. The war was lost. What follows is the end you all know, but not in the way you think. She didn't die of a broken heart. Her suicide was her final act of war, her final move on the chessboard. Octavian needed her alive. He wanted to parade her in chains through the streets of Rome, to humiliate her publicly, to cement his own glory. She was the ultimate trophy. Cleopatra knew this and refused to give him that satisfaction. As Octavian approached Alexandria, she locked herself in her mausoleum with her most precious treasures. She wasn't surrendering. She was negotiating from her last position of strength. She sent Octavian a message. If he didn't let her die with dignity, she would burn the entire treasury. Octavian, who desperately needed Egypt's gold to pay his legions and stabilize Rome, panicked. He rushed to negotiate, promising her honorable treatment. It was a lie. Cleopatra, the woman who spoke 9 languages and had read all the books in the library of Alexandria, saw through the deception. That night, she had a basket of figs brought to her. Hidden inside was an asp, the Egyptian cobra, the symbol of the pharaoh's divine power. For Egyptians, dying from the bite of this snake was not a simple suicide. It was a ritual of apotheosis, a way of becoming a god. She dressed in her royal robes, put on her crown, sat on her throne, and in a final act of defiance, of absolute control over her own destiny, she let the serpent bite her. Octavian won the war, but Cleopatra won the narrative. He wanted a trophy, and she left him a corpse and an immortal legend. So, why are we still obsessed with her 2,000 years later? Because Cleopatra's story isn't just history, it's a mirror. It's the story of a woman who refused to be defined by the limitations her world imposed on her. In an age when women were property, she became a proprietor. In an age when women were expected to be silent, her voice changed empires. In an age when female power was feared, she turned it into her greatest asset. Cleopatra reminds us that power has no gender, that intelligence has no borders, and that ambition is not a dirty word. She teaches us that the tools you are given, be it your mind, your charisma, or your sexuality, are not good or bad. They are simply that, tools, and it's up to you how you use them to build your own empire, whatever that may be. Her story is a reminder that the most dangerous women are not the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who think the deepest, who plan in silence, and who never ever underestimate the power of a good strategy. And you? Do you think Cleopatra was a hero, a villain, or simply the most brilliant player in the most dangerous game in history? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories that Hollywood didn't dare to tell you, you know what to do. Subscribe and hit that bell. See you on the next trip through time.